The Brandon Peters Show may contain explicit language and detailed plot points. For more information on the show, stay tuned to the end of the episode. And now, here's Brandon.
And welcome back to the Brandon Peters Show as we bounce back into our regular format. I hope you enjoyed the holiday gift guide specials last week. Let me know what you thought about them. Today, we will be having a discussion on the 1981 documentary, The Decline of Western Civilization. And joining me today, I am elated to have the director of one of my favorite films of the year, Bleeding Audio, Chelsea Christer.
Oh my gosh, I don't know. I don't know what to say after that. Was I supposed to say anything?
No.
Oh my God. Thank you. What a kind introduction. Hi. Thanks for having me here.
No problem. Damn right could be one. That could be something you say. So before I start drooling over your wonderful film here, let's talk about you for a little bit. You as a filmmaker, where did that passion for film come from and wanting to create? Is there like an exact moment you can recall where a film or an event or something really opened your eyes and clicked your brain, like, this is what I got to do, this is what I was meant to do here?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I can't think of any one singular moment, just like a bunch of little moments, but I would say what I realized is that I've always wanted to be a storyteller, and I've kind of always been a storyteller. Even as a kid, like, I'd make up these stories and just audibly tell them to family members. I remember, like, when I was in 4th grade, I like wrote a full like stage play for Halloween because it was my favorite holiday, and I actually like recruited kids because I was like, oh, there's no drama club, there should be a drama club, and I like recruited kids from my class to like act in this thing. They made like a special period for people to like perform in it and shit. Like I don't know, I've always wanted to tell stories. And then when I got to high school, I started to get really interested in photography, and visually telling stories was really interesting to me. In high school, I also started to learn that there was music other than music that was on the radio, and music that also like I identified with, and just like a whole group of people that I could connect with. And so I started to become very interested in music. And then I started taking video production classes in high school too. And I was like, oh, this is like a combination of all these interests I have, which is like storytelling, visual storytelling, and, you know, music, and just like auditory storytelling, you know. And so I think it was like in my video production class in high school, I like made a really terrible music video, but I was obsessed with making sure that there was a story in the video, and like I was editing it like crazy, and it gave me so much life, and I was like, okay, like I could do this forever and be a happy person. So, you know, I knew from that point, which was probably my sophomore or junior year, I have no idea. But I just like went all in and went to film school and yada yada, and here I am.
Yeah. I like that story. Like that's like all the parts coming together rather than someone like a lot of people, like my person was like, oh, I saw Tim Burton's Batman, I was blown away, and then I saw John Carpenter's Halloween, I'm like, I want to learn how to do this. No, you have like an actual artistic way of building to it. That's pretty unique.
I guess. I mean, there were movies that kind of inspired me, and like my dad in particular like loves watching movies. Like that was our family thing to do, was just like gather around and watch movies. And you know, there were a few movies that when I decided that I wanted to be a filmmaker, it was kind of the same thing that I learned with music, where I was like, oh, there are movies that aren't blockbusters. There are movies that aren't like these like silly comedies that all the teenagers love. I think the first one that just made me go, oh, film can be art was Memento.
Oh, okay.
You know, I was just like, oh, this is crazy. It's breaking the form. It's like enhancing the story through the like format. And it was so wildly interesting to me. And yeah, just, you know, I became a total snob from there, obviously.
Memento's a big one. I wrote a
Yeah.
paper on that my sophomore year of college, actually. I was so taken with that one. That is a really good. Did you ever watch it forwards? Like,
No, because I just feel like it would be boring.
oh no, it's a whole different movie. It's not
yeah?
as good. It's not as
Okay.
good, but it's really different. It's suspenseful in a different way.
Oh,
But
interesting.
there was this really confusing DVD they released long ago where you had to put in this like code and it would play it the other way.
I'm pretty sure I have that DVD.
No-
I'm almost positive I have it, actually.
There you go. It's like the little blue with the pin
Oh, yep,
or the
mhm.
paper clip. Okay.
I do.
Uh,
And something weird about that is I definitely did a project in college. We broke down Memento from an editing
Mhm.
perspective, you know, and like mapped the whole thing out.
Mhm.
But as part of our project in college, like I had a Polaroid camera and I took Polaroids of everybody. And like seriously, almost 10 years passed and I was moving or something
Mhm.
and I was moving. I like, you know, was packing my DVDs and I grabbed my Memento DVD case, completely forgetting about this project. And like a Polaroid of myself slipped out and I just like had this moment where I was like, what the fuck is happening? You know, like where did this come from? But no, yeah, that movie was great.
don't trust who? It's smudged.
I know.
So your pathway, you like went to film school in San Francisco, and then I noticed on your resume you worked some like high profile like PA jobs with like Steven Soderbergh's Contagion, Paul Thomas Anderson's The Master, American Idol. What kind of things did you pick up from those and give you your drive to kind of like, looks like you just went on your own after that, kind of?
Yeah, I mean, maybe this isn't the best answer, but like I learned I didn't want to PA anymore after those jobs. It was like after a 22-hour day on the Master. Literally, I was dropped off at 7 a.m. and I was picked up at 5 a.m. the next day. And like I remember going up to the second AD, and I was supposed to work like 6 hours later on another like pickup shoot that they were doing. And I went up to the second. I was like, "You guys need me because like I don't think I can stand. I need to sleep.
Oh.
I could barely stand at the end of the day." And he was like, "You know, we're probably covered." And I was like, "Because I don't want to lose good standing with you guys, but like, there's just no way." And you know, he was like, "No, you're good. Like, we're covered." And I was like, "Great, thank you." And I like left. And I remember like driving home or whatever, and just being like, yeah, I don't think I'm going to do that anymore. Like I need to, I felt like they were great experiences and I feel like it's so important to PA and witness it and like do the work, but also like, you know, peripherally watch what's going on.
Right.
You get a lot of set etiquette understanding. You get a lot of like, it's just, you can just soak it in like a sponge. But I also feel like, you know, there are some people who are lifelong PAs and I think that's awesome. But like, I just didn't feel like I was moving towards anything doing it.
Right.
I will say that like when I did PA on American Idol, I was working closer with the production office on that one, and they did technically ask me to work in the office for the full season, like down in LA. And I was still in college at the time, and I was like, ooh, this is interesting. Like I could go down this route and like actually keep working and not even finish school. But I was also like, I don't want to do reality TV. Like that's like not what I want to do. And I was kind of afraid, like I had been witnessing, and not to like shit on anybody, but like I'd been witnessing some of the slight disillusionment that you get working in reality TV. Just, you know, I feel like you have to like kind of hide your own humanity and empathy to a certain degree, which I was not capable of doing at all. And so I ended up not doing that either. But but honestly, like PA, like I feel like I scored because like being a PA on Contagion was very, you know, like hands off. Like I got to see a lot of cool stuff and it felt cool. But PAing on the Master was awesome because it was a little more indie. And I was actually closer to the set. I actually, was like on the boat and like guarding
wow.
Philip Seymour Hoffman's like eye line and all this stuff. And it was cool. And like I got to, actually watch how things would run, and so it was a great experience. But I just feel like, I feel like there's a certain point where you just need to take the initiative and just do your own thing. But like definitely PA, just know when to stop.
Right. So, I mean, it sounds like instead of earning your stripes, you want to just paint your own stripes.
Pretty much. Yeah.
I mean,
that's what
after this, you have 2 short films, We're Just Like You and Sierra. And kind of what I've seen them both. What were the 2 projects and like how did they come out? And I got to say, I really loved We're Just Like You. I thought that was brilliant. Like, and the way it was cut together, just excellent.
Thank you. Well, We're Just Like You was actually my first project working with Luke, who I worked with on Bleeding Audio.
Okay.
But We're Just Like You was written by like a friend, teacher, mentor that I had in college who was kind of observing me finding my way in film school, because honestly, I went to film school and I was like, I'm going to be a cinematographer. And then like I saw the cameras and I was like, I fucking hate cameras. I don't want to know the technology. I don't want to like keep up to date with it. Like I just want to know like the technical things that I can communicate to make something look good. And then you worry about whatever K sensor fucking, and we weren't even working with that. Like when I was in college, we were still working on, film cameras and like, we just like little tiny DV tape cameras. I was literally like I graduated like a year before fucking Red came out. But anyway, that all said, like I just like the whole tech part of it, I just hated. And so I was like, okay, I don't want to be a cinematographer. And I was like, well, I've always been really into editing. So then I started kind of going down the editing path and I was like, okay, I'm going to be an editor. And then I realized I am too social to be an editor, like I just hate sitting in a room alone. And I still love editing, but like if it's the only thing I was doing, and then I had I started doing like some production design for friends, and then I started like kind of ADing and like helping to manage sets, just like kind of dipping my toes into being on set. And I was like, I just love this energy. I love this family. And then basically I kept kind of like, my phrase was like, oh, I want a job in the future, so I don't want to be a director. I was just like, it's just too, it's too outlandish, too out there. But then this teacher who wrote We're Just Like You, he was like, I want you to direct this because I think you're a director and you don't know it yet. And I was like, okay, fine, I'll do it. I'll direct it. And I learned a lot, and like there was a lot of decisions that I still felt like I got to take ownership of making, given that it was his written material, because there was a voiceover throughout the whole thing that I cut out.
Oh, okay.
I was like, I think this is better just having her speak visually. And honestly, it was fun workshopping and thinking like, what is the story? And it's like, we all seek human connection in some way, and in some ways it's more fucked up than others, but like,
right.
How like the challenge was like, how can we humanize a serial killer in a way, And so we did that. And it was really fun to put together and like come up with the ideas for some of the shots. But yeah, it was I think it's the only thing that I've done that I wasn't super connected to the source material and just like had to kind of find what I found interesting about it.
Gotcha.
And,
yeah.
Yeah.
So Bleeding Audio, your first feature, a documentary following the trials and tribulations of a band called The Matches. And it's a band that kept flirting with breakout success but just couldn't get over the proverbial hump. And the original run of The Matches goes from, 1997 to 2009, starting as The Locals?
Yeah, I mean, it's so funny because, 1997 is like what the internet says, but if you you check the receipts, they were still in high school, and while it's legit because they were selling little demos and stuff, which isn't featured in the film at all. They weren't actually trying to be a real band until the year 2000. So
Yeah, so like a lot of internet research says that, and then the documentaries I'm hearing like 2002, 2003, a lot of the early things. But where were you during this time period, and how did you get acclimated to the band?
Yeah, so I grew up in Colorado. I didn't grow up in the Bay Area, so I missed out on the Matches fostered this really beautiful local scene called L3 is what they called
Mhm.
it, and it was just like a really beautiful like Bay Area family community scene, and I grew up in Colorado where there really wasn't a centralized scene and there weren't a whole lot of, local bands that were actually breaking out.
Mhm.
But I saw the Matches open for what was my favorite band, which was Motion City Soundtrack.
Okay.
And, they like, oh my God, they blew up the stage. And I was just like, who is this band? What is happening? I don't know what's going on. Like, I have to get to know like their music and everything. And honestly, I was just hooked on the band since then. So, probably 2005. And then when I moved out here for film school and, then they became the local band to me.
Mhm.
I think like one of my first projects in film school was to direct like a short little mini documentary. And so I reached out to the band and asked if they would let me. And they said yes. And so like I made this little like 5 minute, I think it was 5 minutes. I don't remember. It's on the internet somewhere still, actually.
Oh, okay.
But I made this little like 5 minute Matches documentary. And yeah, I ended up befriending the band, and then when they decide to reunite, I don't know if I'm skipping too far ahead, but
You can go wherever
when
you want.
when they decide to reunite in 2014. I said, "Oh my God, yes, let me like help promote this thing for you."
Mhm.
At the time I was doing a ton of marketing videos for corporations anyway, and I was like, this would be like a really fun thing for me to do on the side. I had just finished my festival run with Sierra, and I was just ready and thirsty for a new project. I was so hungry for it, and so I did these little videos for them, and then kind of recognized that their story was a bit bigger, maybe,
Okay.
and could be something more. And then, when the shows sold out in seconds, I was like, okay, this is my first feature. So,
Gotcha. Was that the aspect that you wanted to plunge head first into just a full on feature documentary with them? Was there like something that was like, okay, there's an angle? Was it the reunion that made it click and say I can deep dive into them and tell a whole story, or was there something in your preliminary research that you thought, here we go?
Yeah. So without giving any spoilers, there was an aspect of the Matches career that I found very interesting and compelling, especially given the current digital age of music,
Mhm.
which I had known for many years, which was just about the Matches songs and their ownership of those songs.
Gotcha.
And so
Okay.
yeah, so like one of the things that kicked off their reunion was actually the fact that their first record, the license with Epitaph, was expiring. And at first I didn't understand what this meant or any of that. And, they explained, oh, so we own these tracks because we made them and we licensed them with Epitaph instead of like selling Epitaph our masters. So therefore, at this 10-year mark, we are now able to release the songs ourselves and also like do whatever we want with them.
Yeah.
Like there's subsequent records. Epitaph owns the masters, so they can't do anything with those songs on their own without Epitaph's permission or partnership. So to me, I thought this is a very interesting aspect of the music industry, this like slight business acumen or understanding of like how artists are able to, own their own art. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
And so it was partially that interest and curiosity on my part for how the industry has changed for artists, or how artists can like, make money.
Yeah.
But then also when the shows sold out, I thought, okay, this is a bigger story than just that. Like this is a story about community. This is a story about just about this band's journey, because they had a lot of ups and downs too.
Right. Yeah. It's a very compelling story. So, was the narrative goal that you had at the beginning fulfilled by the end, or did it kind of change a little bit as you went through?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I have such respect for these guys and their humility and their talent. And I personally, I just wanted to make a feature-length documentary about them, their hard work ethic, their, crazy art and music and this community they built. And I just wanted to make a movie about that, period.
Mm-hmm.
And as I was talking to other people and collaborators about, I have this idea for this documentary, all of these things have happened to date. And they're like, you can't make a movie about a band nobody knows. Like, nobody cares. And it was just this thing that was like, well, I can. They're really great. But they were just like, you need to tell a bigger story. And so then that initial curiosity I had of, how are bands navigating the world today? Was something that I decided to factor into the story. So then it became a story that was meant to be like 50% matches, 50% music industry, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then as we got into post-production, we were editing the film down because we got so many great testimonials from music industry experts. We just started to realize that a lot of the music industry story was just so, I wouldn't say preachy, but it was very prescribed, and it didn't have the same heart that the matches story did. So what we did is we just embedded anything industry related directly into the matches experience to kind of tell the macro with the micro.
It's a great move, yeah.
And it was, I honestly, it really kind of helped us to still tell the digital industry story without hammering it in, because there are still so many details that I wanted to have in there. Like, it was basically a dissertation on like, this is what mechanicals are. This is what, like publishing is. These are PROs,
Right.
And it was just too much. It
sounds like it's another documentary in itself too.
Yes. And I have the footage if someone wants to edit it. So
there you go.
But I'm hands off for me. This is for you.
Were there any twists and turns that took it for a different spin through interviews and research that you weren't prepared for or expecting in the middle of things, either in post or during?
Yeah, I mean, I did extend production by a longer period of time. Like, I put off finishing my band interviews for a long time because the band decided to record new music. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is the ending. This is the full circle ending. We've got, a band who was, who's thrown away, and then they come back and their reunion inspires them to write new music. And like literally not a frame of any of that recording process is in the final film. I spent like 6 months filming them doing this. I know, don't even get me started. But no, it was a bit of a twist and a turn that, it delayed production a bunch, and I'm still glad I have it. So again, if somebody else wants to edit it, I have that content for you. But it was part of in one of our longer cuts, I call it the Return of the King ending.
Okay.
We had all these we had all these different things where it would like fade out, and then this other ending would start, and
but
it
then,
was just so
this and
exactly.
Here.
And I was so attached to some of it just simply because I was like, those 6 months are going to be in this movie. And I compromised to just have the matches new songs in the film instead.
Oh, okay.
So, but yeah, I think it's really hard as a documentarian to know exactly when you have to stop, but no matter what, in post-production, you'll know when the timeline stops.
Gotcha. Yeah, I've never personally had experience making a documentary. That just seems like a huge challenge because it's so much a pile, and you're like, well, what here? And it's insane. And kudos to you for pulling it off. You talk about the matches, the matches music in the film. Was it tough figuring out like what went where, what live performance of what song to put here? I mean, you've used music like so effectively in this. I feel like I was supposed to have known who the matches were before, and like the songs like were just so instantly catchy, accessible, but yet not very sellouty at all. But you immediately agree with everyone in the film that's like, I don't know how this band wasn't huge, and you sell them very good, because I feel like I don't know this song, but I feel like I should have heard it in a store or on the radio. Like, how did you go about presenting their music and choosing what to play where?
I mean, I guess the matches should take credit for that
Okay.
one.
All right.
Well, no, I mean, that's just who they are. Like,
Mm-hmm.
we originally, I had very specifically wanted to keep the records sort of evolving with each act, like we did with the animation.
Mhm.
And so, like, early on, it would be Yvonne Dahl. You know, middle of the film, it'd be Decomposer, and at the end, it would just be Abandon Hope.
Okay.
And I mean, honestly, like this. A lot of it was based on performance. So, you know, if there was a really specifically great live performance, or we wanted to show, you know, we wanted to show something that was a little rougher around the edges, like we really focused picking what was played in the film based on just what their live performance was like. And then when it came to the music itself, I mean, honestly, I was unable to get instrumental masters of like any of their records. The only one that I was able to get instrumental masters for was like a part of Abandon Hope and this unreleased demo album that they have. And so we kind of just used this I mean, I guess technically it was album 4 is what they call it, but the band doesn't consider it an album. A lot of fans consider it an album. It was basically the band just didn't want to withhold anything from the fans when they broke up. So they just took a bunch of demos, threw it onto a like Bandcamp, and just sold it for, you know, pay what you want. And so that was weirdly the only record that had a ton of instrumental on it, and it's arguably like one of the strangest, kind of quirkiest sounding ones. And so we just kind of used that as our score. I basically like starred songs that I thought had to be in the film no matter what, and then I let my editors kind of run with it. And pick things that they felt, you know, they wanted to cut to. And then, yeah, it was a collaboration overall. But, you know, sometimes it's hard when you're not like when you're super biased, you know, when you love their music.
Right.
And you just kind of want someone else to pick something that they think sounds good because you're trying to get an audience that doesn't know who the band is to like it. And both of my editors weren't like big Matches fans or anything.
Gotcha.
So it was something that I said, these are the ones that have to be in the film. You know, here are some instrumental ones. And I said, you know, these are the points that I see them playing out, but like just have at it. Whatever you like the sound
Whatever
of.
vibe you're feeling at the time in the editing room.
Yeah.
There it is.
Yeah. And there were a couple of times where I was like, this song shouldn't go here. You
Right.
know? Like there were a couple of those, but for the most part, I just really wanted that outside perspective to help with selecting and curating some of the Matches music because I wanted it to be accessible to an audience who didn't know who the Matches were.
Gotcha. That's excellent. Were there any figureheads that you were hoping to land for interviews in this that just didn't work out? That you're like, I wish I would have had
Tim
blank.
Armstrong?
There. Okay.
Just because selfishly, I thought it would have been really cool to interview Tim Armstrong and just kind of get his perspective on the Matches. Because arguably some of Tim's tracks that he produced for the Matches are like some of the poppiest ones, which just seems so not Tim Armstrong.
Got you.
And I was just interested to hear his perspective. And then I think that's really it. There were a few women in the music industry in the same scene at the time that I really wanted to interview for the film just to get their perspective. But a couple that like I just never heard back or anything. And so that's another reason I was like really excited to get Cassidy Pope in the film too, is because I feel like she's got a great perspective and has not only experienced both like the scene that the Matches were associated with for better or for worse, but she also like you know, has this new world of music that she is in, which is, you know, country music, which is a whole different kind of business, you know, the way that country music operates. So it was great getting her in the film. I'm trying to think if there's anyone else, but honestly, I'm really happy with the interviews, if I'm honest. When we finally got Mark Hoppus in the film, I was just like, okay, like I feel like we got a full circle.
you had a point in the film where they mention they talk about going on tour with Real Big Fish, and I was like, oh, are any of them gonna? No, okay.
Oh
'Cause
yeah, that is,
I was
like,
a
Aaron
big
Barrett.
fan of them in high school.
Oh my God, me too.
Loved Real Big Fish. So
Yeah, I totally forgot about that. Yeah, Aaron Barrett ended up declining to interview, and I was like so kind of bummed because I
Yeah.
was like, oh, he would have been really cool to have in this moment. Um, but yeah, like I honestly, I'm fine with it. You
Yeah,
know, like I
yeah.
remember when he declined, and I was like, I get it. you know.
Yeah.
And I think like some of the band members that were in Real Big Fish at the time that the
Mhm.
matches were touring with them are just no longer there.
Yeah, that's been a rotating
Oh, totally.
thing of people.
So,
So. Gotcha.
so yeah, I was so good call. I was a little bit bummed about that one. I think it's just been like I've been working on this thing for 6 goddamn years. that,
Yeah.
like there's certain like losses or
You don't wanna come?
like
Fine.
wins and right, like there's certain losses and wins that you just sort of forget, you know?
Yeah.
And you're just like, "Oh yeah, that was a bummer." But I'm just happy with how it turned out. So,
That's fair. No, it's great.
Yeah.
That was just one of the moments like, oh, okay. So of course, we have to mention the year we're in, 2020 year of the pandemic and all that. Your film's on a festival circuit that's been pretty much virtual. Is that
yep.
correct to say? But have you at least been able to see your film in its final form with an audience in a theater at all?
So just once.
Okay.
I'm one of the lucky ones, is what I say,
Okay.
because there are so many filmmakers who are deprived of that
Mm-hmm.
this year. But we had one world premiere screening on March 7th.
Wow.
Yeah, it's so funny because I say that date now, and everyone's like, "Whoa!" Like that is literally right before the world ended.
Yeah.
And
Holy crap.
yeah, what actually happened is that whole week leading up to our world premiere, because I knew we had Matches fans flying out, we had this whole thing planned, we had an after party with a musical performance planned. I mean, there was going to be a lot of proximity.
Yeah.
No social distancing. And I remember like the week before, things were kind of feeling a little weird. And then March 1st rolls around, and I'm hearing rumors from friends that's like, "Oh my God, like my tech job, like they closed down our office, we're all working from home." And I'm like, "It's March 3rd."
Yeah.
And then South by Southwest canceled.
Oh.
And I remember that news came through because I work
Yeah.
at a production company, and there's other filmmakers there. And as soon as that news came through, all of us were like, fuck. Like, I
Come
have got a world
on.
premiere on Friday. Like,
Oh.
is it going to cancel? Like, we were so scared it was going to
Oh, my.
cancel, And,
Yeah.
we just kind of kept being like, okay, let's just see what happens, Like, CineQuest kept being like, we're still going. And then Saturday morning, the morning of the premiere, they sent out an email where they were like, "We are continuing with the programming until Sunday, end of day, but the rest of CineQuest is canceled due to the growing concern, and the city wants us to shut down all events. So all the screenings will continue as planned over the weekend, but otherwise, we're done." And
Woo.
our screening was sold out. It was probably like 75% capacity, which I still
Yeah.
think is pretty impressive given a global pandemic meltdown.
Oh yeah.
And I keep saying this in interviews and stuff, but like it really felt like we were the quartet on the Titanic. We were just like, okay, everybody, let's just have fun. It's gonna be fine.
Oh, God. Yeah.
And
Oh.
I remember going to the screening that night and just being like, okay, no hugs. But it was the world premiere of a
Elbows.
film that I'd been working on. Yeah, it was like started with elbows.
Clothed elbows.
Right?
There you go.
That's what it started with, but instead it was just like by the end of the night, I was just hugging everybody. There was a big sweaty, tiny show. We took over this little bar,
Yeah.
and it was amazing. It was an amazing night, but it was also just like, what's happening,
Yeah, it's really weird.
So weird. So I haven't seen it in a theater with people since. I'm dying to.
Yeah.
Virtual screenings, it's great to reach an audience, and it's great to socialize film festivals to an audience that might not know what they are,
Right.
because that's been a common misconception. But the energy exchange that we desire as artists just like doesn't happen.
Right.
So
Yeah.
so I'm definitely craving some live in-person screenings, but I'm not quite ready to risk my life for it.
No, nobody is.
So
So I just gotta say, like, this documentary, it's I have to, and I need a couple. It's one of the most relatably human that I've ever seen about art or the entertainment industry. Like it was touched watching it. Like the dollar calculations that you've thrown in there about, the business practice industry, the difference between exposure points and actual financial success. I don't think I've seen it presented in such a understandable way or a realistic way that I can't recall. Like I was like, holy crap, this is real. This is dollars and cents. And I lived in Los Angeles for 4 years, and I had many friends that were trying to break in the music industry, and they didn't even go as far as the matches, but this was their life, and you really see that. And I've never seen a documentary that shows that side ever.
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, it was really important to me to drive the message to people that like there is a very, very stark disconnect between what is outwardly perceived as success and what is actually, sustainable behind the scenes. What's interesting in this digital transition that the industry has gone through is that physical media obviously either no longer exists or no longer has monetary value, which, inevitably takes away the value of music. Like artists no longer make money off of music. So how do they make money?
Yeah.
And it's like, and so the first solution in the early 2000s was touring. I mean, bands toured already, but like bands didn't tour as much as they toured starting in like 2004, 2005. Like that's when it was like bands going on the road for, 10 months out of the year, and that's how they made their income, and it's not healthy or sustainable. Touring is great. Live shows are awesome, but it's the expense of like human energy. There's no backup pitcher that you can swap in for your lead singer. That lead singer is fraying their voice every single night, know, it's not healthy or sustainable. So, I wanted to show that exhaustion and how hard it is to break through, but also, I don't want to like guilt people into buying music, but it's just like you just have to understand that it's a reciprocal relationship. We are not entitled to musicians' art.
No.
We need to support our artists if we want artists to keep making more art. And that's where like a lot of these bands fall by the wayside, is it's just they can't keep going. It's either physically too draining or they just can't support themselves. And when you want to have a family, when you want to like even if you don't want to have a family, you just want to have your own apartment. It's just a cheap ass studio apartment. Like, what's the point if you're not going to be there 10 months out of the year? And, why would you use your money to drain it into a place that you're never at? So then if you're lucky enough to have supportive parents and you live with them, is that a great thing to be doing in your late 20s?
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't feel great.
No. And like Justin's side of the story, really, that happened to myself when I lived in Los Angeles. I was like,
I'm so sorry.
No, it was just like, I don't want to wake up 40, 50, and this is going to be it. This is the one. Or paycheck to paycheck. And I was like, I don't think I can do that. And I made a change in my life. It was like the best change ever. And artistically, while I'm not in Los Angeles and doing stuff, like I've found an avenue that's been far more fruitful for me and successful. And like, that's something, see, but I was like, yeah, that's really a big thing that happens to you in like probably your mid-late 20s. And I actually I had lunch with a friend. I hadn't been to LA. Like I moved back and I didn't go back for like 8 years. And I had lunch with a friend. I traveled out there and he told me, he's like, I go back to your decision like all the time. He's like, it's too late for me now, but I wonder if I should. I'm like, no, dude, you do your thing. Do your thing. I don't feel bad about it, but like, not all of us can do it. Like I couldn't.
Yeah. I mean, not to interrupt you, but like,
Interrupt.
I feel like
this is you, not me.
I feel like some people are very well suited for that lifestyle.
Right. Yeah.
And that's totally fine.
Mm-hmm.
But if that's not what you want,
right.
then that creeps in on you, know, and it's not that, you don't want to be creative or you don't want to like make music. It's just that like, in order to have a means to an end, you have to tirelessly tour and do all these things that
Yeah.
might not just physically be sustainable to you or
Yeah.
mentally healthy either.
Yeah.
There's a huge mental health disparity too. And I'm starting to see it more and more because if you think about it, the musicians who, went out on the road
Mm-hmm.
15 years ago, they're all like starting to hit their mid to late 30s,
Yeah.
early 40s. And like there's, it's like soldiers coming back from war,
Mhm.
like, I mean, okay, that's maybe an unfair comparison. Like, obviously it's not the same, but
Right.
there is like a certain level of like, stunted, I guess, like just maturity in ways of just handling yourself, being able to
Right.
take care of yourself instead of being handled by somebody else. But also there's just like, there's an exhaustion and like a mental health disparity that
Mhm.
comes with it too. And that's like something that I feel like is about to become its own epidemic,
Right.
of like musicians coming off the road with like all of these mental health issues and inability to like take care of themselves. And I don't want to like discredit these like anybody, because I feel like a lot of people make it through. A lot of people,
Right.
just have support or are able to make it through. But I still feel like, I mean, we see a mental health crisis in our musicians right now. Like,
Yeah.
we're hearing it in their songs. We're seeing it in, a death toll. And it's not,
Yeah.
there is something causing it. And I think a huge part of it is just sustainability
Mhm.
and, sustainability for artists of all verticals,
Yeah.
needs to be considered in this digital era where we as consumers just want to consume
Yeah.
with kind of an air of entitlement, and it's not fair
No,
to
no.
our artists,
No.
yeah.
Yeah. It's
Anyway,
piracy. No,
I
not
get
good.
real soapboxy about it, so
Hey, no, go ahead. Go ahead. Yeah, no, that's a thing, and it's hard to learn that you can do other things, keep it going, evolve what you're doing, find
Mhm.
peace and creativity in that. But people think it's got to be this way. This is how success is made, forgetting that there are new paths to success carved all the time.
Totally. And
Unconventionally.
it's not even just about the new paths to success. I think too it's about like redefining success,
Yeah.
And I feel like that was the biggest thing that like gave the matches new life is
Mhm.
they were like, well, we didn't make it, We didn't
Yeah.
we didn't break through. But then when they came back and there was this very welcoming community
Mhm.
that not only like, loved each other, but loved the band, I think that to them realized that they did make it, And I think
Mhm.
I think that's the important thing to understand as an artist is that like, you don't need to be on the radio to like be successful,
Right.
Being a household name is nice. Like, sure,
Yeah.
it would be great to be the fucking Beatles. Sure, it
Yeah.
would be great to, like
Yeah.
be a historical band, like,
Or
but
at least
but
a
like,
big one-hit wonder everyone goes back to. That'd be
like, yeah. But at the same time, it's like you think about, I mean, the turnover for artists these days. I mean, like where I remember in one of the interviews with Ben Young, who was the Matches guitar tech and is now like the biggest bands in the world guitar tech.
Mhm.
He brought up something that I hadn't thought about before, but he's like, where are the headliners? Like where
Yeah.
are the festival headliners? Like where are the AC/DCs? Where are the, where are the Rolling Stones? Like it's just the saturation of artists in the market right now. And the turnover that we have with our like consumption
Mhm.
just like isn't making things stick in quite the same way. Like the whole legendary rock star thing, it's
Mhm.
just, it's like so much harder to come by.
Right.
And I don't think that's a bad thing necessarily,
Okay.
but I think it does lend some perspective to the artists who are like, great, I got a song on the radio. We did it. It's
Yeah.
like, nope.
Nope.
Like you have to keep writing good music and keep slaving over it in order to like make it happen. Like I think having a hit song on the radio is great. You actually can make some decent money with that if you, own some of at least 50% of your publishing.
Right,
and
right.
You're able to like, and it depends on what percentage of the, publishing you are a part of that song, because if you're not listed as a writer on that song, you're not making a dime.
Yeah, there you go.
So,
True.
so, it's, there's a lot of things to consider. And I think the biggest one is just to like take those goalposts and like set them at a level that
Mhm.
doesn't have fame in mind, make
Right.
art that you love, that you're proud of, and your audience will find you, It's so much easier now to get your art out there. And if it hits big, cool.
Yeah.
Great. If it doesn't, but it's able to sustain you, that's the fucking dream.
There.
You know?
Yeah. Exactly.
Nobody wants your dream to kill you. And a lot of the times the artists that like hit it big, like I feel like that, I mean, the dream is killing you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Anyway.
No, that was great. No. I just want, before we move on, I just want to share, like, this film. Well, I've said it's one of my favorite of the year. I was amazed. So it was shared with me, like, I was asked to review it. At the time, I was in deep pre-production to launch this podcast. And I write for a site, and I was I didn't have time, but I really wanted someone to cover it. And I couldn't find a good writer to do it. I wasn't going to give it to what I find subpar writer. And I just couldn't find it. And I was like, fine, I'm gonna do this. Whatever. I'm going to put it on. And just, I don't know. I was just, sometimes things come from unexpected places. And it really built, like, I love the film. And it built my enthusiasm and, like, refueled my strength to get across the finish line, especially like when you guys, I posted it, and the amount of gratitude and thankfulness and stuff that you guys gave me, the band, you, whatever, I couldn't believe it. Like, it felt great, and it really, like, helped me, give me the confidence to, because at the time I was like, is anyone going to listen to this thing? Is it going to go well? And that really moved. So I'm not going to forget the film. Like, it really hit me at a right time. So
well,
thank
you. I mean, thank you. That means a lot. And honestly, your review meant so much to me too. And the other people on the crew. Cause like, I don't know, you sit with something for so long and you think this is never going to happen. And, you know, you work over every frame and every detail, and then, just seeing anyone react to it. I mean, honestly, even if you gave me a terrible review, I've been like, fucking thank you for watching it. Like,
it'll come up in a search. Yeah.
You know, well, no, I mean, not even that. I mean, we tell stories to, like, so that somebody else can kind of take something from that story for themselves, you know? And I think, you know, that's why I got into this industry, you know, was to tell stories and hopefully give somebody either a mirror or just something that they could take something from it, you know? And yeah, it just, it meant a lot to me, and I'm so glad that it hit you at the right time. And it's just cool, man, when people actually watch your art, you know?
Of course.
It means a lot.
Yeah. And it's great. And I've watched it a couple times now, so pretty good stuff.
Thank you.
I hope you get like a Blu-ray or something for it. I collect physical media, so hopefully
trying.
Yeah. I know that's not the easiest thing to get across, but
it's something that, I mean, I'm going to do anyway, because I've got Kickstarter backers. I owe them, you know, a DVD or a Blu-ray. It's probably just going to end up being a Blu-ray. But I think for me, and this is something that I don't want to get too caught up on, but I'm like, oh, a Blu-ray, that means bonus features, all the scenes that hit the cutting room floor that I thought about, like,
hours
I could put those in there, you know? But then I think, oh, it could be cool to, you know, I just start having all these ideas of like fun things to do for the Blu-ray. And then, yeah, I just like, just get the movie a distributor first, then worry about the Blu-ray. Because then maybe somebody will actually, you know, like give you the money to have somebody else get all that material for you.
Yeah. So here's like, I want all this on it.
Here are the things. Yeah. Here are the things. Make it happen. Make it work. So. Yes. Eventually. But yes, I swear, we'll get it on Blu-ray at some point. I just got to figure out how to do that, or find someone to figure it out for me.
All right. Excellent. I like to hear that. All right. Moving. You gave me a lot there. We're probably going to go a little over. Is that okay?
Oh, that's fine. Yeah, I don't mind. Sorry, I talk a lot.
No, I like that. I told you a little over an hour. It might go a little longer if that's okay.
That's fine. Yeah.
Okay.
Of course.
All right. So, The Decline of Western Civilization is directed by Penelope Spheris and is a documentary film between 1979 and 1980 that takes a look into the Los Angeles punk rock scene that was largely ignored by the rock music press of the time. It follows the bands Black Flag, Germs, X, Alice Bag Band, The Circle Jerks, Catholic Discipline, and Fear. Spheris should go on to direct 2 sequels of the documentary. I've seen the Metal Years. I haven't seen the third one. And
With the third one, sorry to interrupt.
no,
Third
go for it.
Third one is a heartbreaker. It's so
okay.
good. You got to see it. It's about gutter
I would
punks.
Okay, I'm gonna check it out soon. I got into a point where I was checking them out. Something probably happened in my life, and then I just never got to the third one.
It's not an easy watch.
Okay.
I'll be honest, but it's great.
Fair enough. It's getting watched soon.
Sorry for interrupting.
No, it's fine. She's also has a cult favorite documentary, Suburbia, and familiar 1990s films, Wayne's World, The Beverly Hillbillies, Little Rascals, and Black Sheep, a Chris Farley film. And you can watch it on Amazon Prime, Tubi, or Pluto right now. So if you want to watch it out. Watch it after you hear us talk about it. Chelsea, we toggle over a couple choices for a film to talk about, but ultimately we landed on this one. What had you leading toward discussing this one, which marks the first time I've talked about it? Well, actually, second time I've talked to about a documentary on the show because we just talked about Bleeding Audio. So second time. Aha. 2 for 1.
Had to keep it on brand.
On brand? Okay.
No,
I figured.
So I picked The Decline of Western Civilization because for many reasons. One, it's a film that I'm really inspired by. I mean, there really isn't a whole lot that I drew from Decline into Bleeding Audio, except maybe the tattoo scene.
Okay.
There is a scene in Decline where the dudes in X are tattooing each other.
Okay. Yeah.
And it's, I don't know, it was so raw, you know?
Yeah.
And I always kind of thought, oh God, like I really want to film people getting tattoos. Like there's something so emotionally powerful about the act of permanently branding your body, right? And even them, like, you know, here's Penelope Spheris like interviewing these, you know, reckless punk rockers, right? And you think, oh, they're just like putting stupid shit on their arm and stuff. And she asks them like, oh, like, you know, do you get a tattoo that doesn't mean something to you? And like one of the guys says, oh, it's fucking stupid. Like, why would you do that? You only get something tattooed if it really means something, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, that's great. You know, that's always stuck with me. But I picked this movie because, one, directed by the most punk rock badass lady in the world, Penelope Spheris.
Right.
And two, it's just, I mean, it's just so raw. Like there's so much about it. It's just these little, it's almost just a collection of short films of like insane punk rock performance and like really weird verite off the cuff interviews with like these punk rockers who are either totally loaded the whole time or like just are so convicted to what they believe in that it's like they're almost nonsensical at times, you know? It's great.
Insane, yeah.
Yeah.
It feels it feels dangerous. Like I'm scared of some of these people. I'm scared for some of these people. And I fear for the documentarians during this.
Totally. And they're like filming with like 16 millimeter cameras, just like sitting there with the cranks, probably like, oh my God, you know?
Yeah.
Because it is like these shows are like intense. They're dangerous. They're dangerous shows.
Right. And they're like, they go to their homes. It's like, oh, Black Flag lives in like a death dungeon. So
with all the
come
graffiti.
On in. Yeah.
And like, they're like, oh yeah, this is like an abandoned church. And they like keep opening cabinets and they're like, here's a bed.
Right.
Like pulling back a curtain. Here's another bed, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not sure any kind of like music or documentary has really had me feel this way or like since. Like, I'm sure all these people were kind of harmless in real life, but they're presented in this anarchic, reckless, and like powerful way. Like, holy crap.
Well, I think what's so great about it, and this is why I think Penelope Spheris is such a fucking badass punk rock legend, is she doesn't judge them. She doesn't, you know, she's like pretty much just one of them. And she's literally just asking them questions because she just wants to know. Like there's an energy, because you hear her voice asking them questions sometimes. And she's just so genuinely curious and unjudgmental. And I feel like that's, if there's anything that kind of inspired me when I was approaching like making a music documentary or just like learning how to interview for a music documentary, it's to go in without judgment and to just listen. And understand that, you know, everybody has a way of living their life. Everybody has like a story. And like, it's not right or wrong, you know?
Right.
I mean, well,
Well,
you know what I mean. When it
yeah.
comes to like punk rock and like some of these music things, like
Right.
there just isn't like she just goes in with that feeling, you
Mhm.
know? Like, I am not here to judge you. I am here to learn about you and learn with you, you know? And I think that that energy is what gave such honest interviews, you
Yeah.
know, and allowed her to embed herself into that world in a way that I don't think she felt unsafe once, you know, like
No.
just judging by the way the whole thing was filmed is like she didn't feel unsafe. I mean, so in the movie during the Fear performance
Yeah.
and like what's his face, the lead singer,
Leaving or is it
yeah,
Ding?
leaving.
Yeah.
I was just like, oh, there's so many names. And he just starts riling up the crowd by
Oh,
like
yeah.
throwing a bunch of like homophobic slurs and like he's
profanity.
just
Yeah. Like,
and literally just trying to rile them up.
Yeah.
Like and that like punk girl in the front like
Mhm.
gets up and like starts like fighting him and this whole brawl breaks out. I'm just
Yeah.
sitting there like, oh my god, the cameras, you know, like how is it
Don't-
so volatile, like
Oh,
the
yeah.
whole thing. But they're like all smiling at the end. Then she's like in the front row just like moshing and she's fine and everybody's just having fun and just releasing, you know.
Yeah.
Um
She tries to spin a positive way of them showing their raw anger and aggression and spite that they seem to have, and that it all like they have it in their minds, but they take it out here in a
yeah.
communal place rather than just randomly on the streets.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like I think like the structure of the film is also really interesting because she has, you know, these colorful interviews of the bands and their performances. But then she has like these black and white interviews with like what I imagine are concert attendees. And she asks them questions about like, oh, what do you like about it? Why do you think you feel this way? And, you know, a lot of them are like, I don't know, I'm just like pissed about everything all the time, you know? And it's just like, this just helps me get out my anger and like, you know, or, you know, one girl was talking about depression and, you know, this is 1980, right?
Yeah.
Like, and she's talking about depression and how like she doesn't feel depressed. Like these shows like help her have this release, you know? And it's just such a great, you know, mark of like why this kind of music attracts people who are outsiders, you know? Like, I don't know, it's just such a it's kind of a weird ass movie too. And like seeing baby Pat Smear.
Oh yeah, and he talks about punching women.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, man, he'd
What?
be canceled nowadays. That came out like
Well,
kick him
I
out of your
think-
band.
well,
But he
I
could have
think
been joking too. It seemed like there's a harsh sense of humor.
totally. But I think too the point that I felt he was trying to make, not to defend punching women, but I think the point he was trying to make is he's like, I would punch a woman or a man, you know? And that's like the thing is that it's juxtaposed like right after that, that woman goes after Fear, you know?
Right, yeah,
Where she's
okay, yeah.
she's the one who instigates the fight and she's like punching everybody and she's like, what the fuck, you know? And then like the band is punching her, you know?
True.
And it's this thing where it's like, you know, I don't condone violence. I don't think punching is the answer, but like it just I feel like it was that thing where it's just like, I don't care if you're a girl or a boy. Like if you're messing with me, like I'm going to punch you. You know what I mean? Like that's
Okay.
kind of the vibe that it felt like. But yeah, I don't condone punching women, but
No.
that's what I think is so interesting about these, like just the way these interviews are, is that it's like in some ways you think they're putting on a show, but in other ways you're just like, no, they don't give a fuck.
Yeah, they don't
Like,
give a
are
fuck.
just-
There's some that I think they decided to declare this certain lifestyle, and then they're beyond gone in believing in it and creating it. Now they live in it. Like
Yeah.
they're like a persona. Like I've met musicians and stuff before that like decided that this is who I'm gonna be. I'm not really this person, but whenever I'm playing, whenever I'm a show, I'm gonna be this guy. And a lot of them asshole behavior. And their friends are all like, "Oh no, he's a really nice guy." I'm like, I don't want the guy that turns into an asshole just because that's who he wants to be when he's around people.
Right.
But there's some of that, but I think all these people are like so gone into believing their philosophies that they created, and they're kind of
Yeah.
a lot of them are like those half-baked ideas you have when you're a teen in your early 20s that you grow up and you're like
100%.
maybe yeah.
Yeah, well there's that feeling of rebelling and just like going against the status quo, and I feel like especially it's interesting because I feel like now,
Mm-hmm.
because if you think about it, like that was, 1980, right?
Right.
So like if you think about the time then, it was just like coming out of the 70s, and like just there's so much anger and just like so much like oppression that,
Yeah, you had Vietnam, Nixon getting booted out. Yeah.
And so there's so much like anger at the status quo and so many people telling you have to do the status quo. And I feel like that's happening again now, is like,
Right.
there's this narrative of you have to go to college, get in student loan debt, and you're never going to buy a house. And like all of us are just kind of angry about this status quo. And so
Right.
like no matter the generation, like you're going to want to rebel, and like showing like punk as in the, like early LA punk scene in the 1980s, showing this like feeling of rebelling, like one of the songs in it is like criticizing, like Beverly Hills, like all the stupid people, they look exactly the same, like, like I don't want to be like you, like like you all look the same and you're lame,
Right,
it's
yeah.
just like, and that's it's just like not wanting to, it's like wanting to, define yourself and be an individual, and I don't know, it's also too, I mean, sorry, this is a bit of a tangent, but like
I love tangents. Go.
well, I think, this is about the LA punk scene, right? Which is very aggressive, but also like if you think about LA in the 1980s too, like, very, again, Beverly Hills, like lots of clones, like this is what you're supposed to be, this is who you're supposed to be, this is how it's supposed to be. And then you think about like the punk scene in the Bay Area, you think about the Gilman scene, which happened arguably quite a bit later. God, when did Gilman kick off? I'm not gonna know dates, but like if you think about like in the Bay Area, it was like Gilman was all about like community, about like welcoming people in,
Right.
and like there was, moshing and all this stuff, but it was just a different vibe than like this really aggressive punk scene in LA. And I just find that very interesting between the two, that like the music feels similar, but like the mentalities are so different, it feels like.
Yeah. I feel like this also evolved, like another similar situation would be like the grunge scene from the late 80s to mid 90s. Kind of, it's not as violent and people are it's more about depression, it seems, and stuff, but there's the moshing, the communal sense of this, like no one understands us, we're going to be who we are. And then, it's okay. And then like for them, unfortunately, they got we're going to commercialize the hell out of this stuff.
Right.
And then it loses its luster.
And then
for
you just
them.
get more depressed.
And then they get more depressed. So, but that was a similar thing. I was thinking about like, when did this happen again? I was like, probably right there, probably. And then it just, at least peaceful evolutions with them as they come less violent. But yeah, there's nothing like this. When did you first see this movie?
So I first saw Decline of Western Civilization in college, in my female filmmakers class.
Oh,
I took,
okay.
like basically a feminist filmmakers class, which honestly changed my life. Like there were so many things that I didn't know about the history of film and women's involvement in it, and then their subsequent, booting being a part of it, So I don't know if you know this, but in like the early like 1920s and 30s, like women like dominated the film industry.
Oh yeah,
actually,
it's
the
film industry with sorry to
no. Like I was just gonna bring up like Dorothy Arzner and like all of these other like amazing female directors, but then like legally it was deemed not a feminine job, and so like women were just like cut out of the industry. So there are all these amazing silent filmmakers, and then suddenly there's not.
Yeah.
And so anyway, we studied a little bit of the history of women in film, and then studied a bunch of different female directors, and we watched Decline of Western Civilization, and I was just hooked,
Yeah.
because I also think too, this is a weird reason to idolize Penelope Spheeris, but like I've always so admired how she handled her career as an artist. And the reason why is because I mean, here she is doing like Wayne's World and like Beverly Hillbillies and like, I don't know, what's the kid one? I forget the kid one. Little Rascals. And like she's doing all these like commercial fluffy films in between doing these fucking insane punk rock documentaries, you know? And it's like, it's literally like using the man to pay for your art, you know? And I've always like really respected that about her. Like, if anything, that's like one of the reasons why she's one of my favorite directors, is because I'm like, God, you're so like, you're playing everybody, you know? Like, you are directing the little fluff piece, and you're taking that money and you're making the film of your dreams. And I think that's really cool, you know? And so I've always admired that about her too, of just kind of doing whatever she wants and not being afraid of playing the game to like serve a different purpose, you know?
Yeah. And to her credit, I like both Wayne's World and Black Sheep quite a bit. So
I love Wayne's World. Who doesn't love Wayne's World?
Yes.
She so I'm a huge fan of hers.
Yeah.
And I saw her. There was like a triple feature, and it was Decline of Western Civilization, Wayne's World, and then maybe Suburbia, or maybe it was just a double feature. I don't know. But she, like, in her interview, I guess when they were putting Wayne's World together, I mean, she knew a bunch of rockers and stuff, and that's kind of like how she got the job. She knew a lot of people at SNL. She directed a couple SNL skits. And I guess when they were doing Wayne's World, it was actually a really low budget film. And so they were like, look, Penelope, like we can't really pay you that much. And so they're like, can we pay you in percentages? You know? And she was like, you know, again, punk as fuck. And she's like, sure, just as long as it's in perpetuity. And they're like, okay, great. And so I think she owns like 8% of Wayne's World.
Oh.
8. Which is huge.
That is big.
And she was like, the whole audience gasped, you know, they're like 8% of Wayne's World, you know? And she's like, yeah, they're never going to sign a deal like that ever again.
Yeah.
So don't ask for it. But
Wow.
I got lucky, you know?
Yeah.
So, but yeah. And I went to another time, like if she's here for a screening, like they're able to rope her in for like a Q&A in San Francisco. I've been to 2 different ones now. And I saw a double feature of Suburbia and Decline of Western Civilization 3, which I'm going to say one more time.
I'll watch it.
You got to see it.
I will watch it.
But also like Suburbia back to back with Decline 3 is a little rough. It's
okay.
like, it's not going to be the most uplifting evening. But it was
Sometimes
great.
we need downers. Sometimes we need 'em.
Sometimes. But yeah, it's like I like never get signatures, and I got a signed poster from her.
Oh,
so
excellent.
pretty stoked.
There
It even
you go.
says to Chelsea on it.
Oh! There you
It's like
go.
the only time I've ever gotten a signature, and I've been like really excited about it. I'm just like,
Yeah.
oh my God. I never asked for autographs. She's like, do you want me to sign it? I was like, well, if you're going to anyway, I'll take it.
Yeah. I'm not a signature person. I'm more of a picture person than a signature, but it's interesting.
Totally.
Yeah.
Well, I like don't do either. And then when she was like, oh, I'm just going to sign it. And I was like, okay. She's like, what's your name? And I was like, okay. And she's like, what's your name? And I was like, oh, it's Chelsea. So.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, I only saw this movie like I think 6 or 7 years ago, and like film critic I like a lot. Amy Nicholson had a podcast, and it was the subject of their show, and I was like, I'd never heard of it, and it sounded so crazy, and I checked it out, and I was like, whoa, this is intense. This is something else. Which I've noticed, it's a documentary, but it's secretly a concert film.
Oh, totally.
Like all the songs are so short and fast, you don't realize you've seen like 14 performances, which is enough for like an album by the end, and that's really cool. That she sneaks them in.
So awesome. It's really cool. And I mean, and some of them are just wrecked, like with germs. You know? Darby Crash, just like he's so blasted.
Yeah.
You know? And like, oh God, it's so sad, you know, what ended up happening to him too. But like, you know, it's just so crazy that she basically like documented Darby Crash like
the end,
before he died, you know? And like it's just so intense, you know, seeing him so blasted but still like getting these words out, you know?
Yeah.
And like singing along, just being so faded. It's so crazy.
And he's like one of the more calm ones too. He's like less vile.
Yeah.
Till he gets on stage, but yeah. When he's at home cracking eggs and stuff.
I know. I love her kind of her trope, because in Decline too, you know, she like films Ozzy Osbourne making eggs. It's like her thing. Like, I want to see them cooking breakfast, which is a genius documentary move.
It's definitely
just like So good. And Ozzy is just, incoherent when he's making eggs too. In
Right.
that film. Sorry, I don't mean to keep bringing up the other two films either, but they're just
Oh,
such
it's
a
okay.
great collection
Mm-hmm.
of just like musical history, and just like and that's what's interesting too about the third one is, you were talking about how this ideology, this like punk ideology, sort of like creates these personalities.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that's what the Decline 3 is kind of about, is like
Okay.
how the ideology can like it gives you this purpose and this pride, but it can also just like completely destroy your life, and it's almost like these gutter punks, like they are hindered and like stunted because they can't let go of like rebelling against the system,
Yeah.
is it's almost like, that they would rather live on the street and scrape by and starve than go to high school and get a degree, and it's like, not, again, like she approaches these films with no judgment.
No.
And it's just a portrait of like what these ideologies can benefit to you, but also what they can take away from you too, because if you live your life in absolutes, I feel like you can't have,
Right.
a very balanced life, and I feel like if anything, Decline 3 is, shows that in a very interesting way.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. And I haven't seen Decline 3, but I agree with what you're saying. She kind of presents, here it is, in its honest form, rather, and doesn't say one way or the other about it. There's no slant to it. The only slant you get is some of the journalists talking about stuff, which is kind of funny. With that, one guy's like, I've been through one too many youth movements in my life. And I was like, that was.
And he's like, what? And he's like,
and he's like, he has to be late 20s,
yeah,
like max. But yeah,
is that the guy that was like up on the like hillside with LA in the background?
it might have been him. Yeah.
Yeah. I was just like, you pretentious fuck.
Like, he asked to be shot there.
Oh, yeah.
His office is right around the corner. Like, can we go out and just, yeah.
100%. 100%. No, but I do, and it's true. I feel like a lot of, because documentary filmmaking inherently is telling a story with a perspective, with a, with a narrative voice,
Right.
like even though you're presenting real life, like you're still telling a story, and so you adjust the narrative to kind of fit that story. And that's something that I feel like, I learned making my film Bleeding Audio, was like, I kept thinking we have to hit all the milestones. We have to tell the story like it is, but like, that's just not how like storytelling works,
Right.
You have to tell the story that is compelling and gets the message across, and it's still, it's still truthful. It still can be honest, but it doesn't have to be pedantic, And so like, but it's still, you are still telling it with a perspective. And like, I think what is interesting about these Decline films is that the perspective is just no judgment, is that I feel like she could have so easily made this film and like been like, added some sort of narrative to be like, look at these fucking losers. Look at how
it's called
crazy
punk
they are.
music, and your kids may already be doing it.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, I feel like she just presents it where it's just like, however you feel about this, by the end of it, says more about you than it does about me as a director, and more about the people on the screen.
Right.
You know?
Well, I'm saying, like, I'm almost 40, and watching this movie is different than me watching it as a teen or in my 20s. And the ideologies, like I said, I call them half-baked now, but back then I would have possibly latched onto them. And it's hard to grasp and understand, like, in your teens and 20s, the life that comes after that I already mentioned, and just the evolution, reflection of things that let you know that, like, that may not work how you're dreaming it, but it will find a way or something. Like, because people are angry. They want to be understood. They want to already be at this level. And there's such a hill to climb to an experience in life that you have to get through that you just don't want to at the time. But, but yeah, this is a film that I think people should watch, like, young, middle, later, continue to return to, see how your perception of it changes. it's one of those films that like I'm definitely gonna return to it more. This is like the maybe third time I've seen it, and I've gotten something new out of it every time, and that's kind of interesting from a documentary to grab that. Normally I get that from like Blade Runner. I see something new in it every time, but
Totally.
like this is a different experience with that.
Yeah, I mean, revisiting it for this interview, I felt the same way. As like, I feel like I've watched this film so many times. It's probably my sixth time seeing it. You know, maybe even seventh. I don't know. I watched it a lot. I've seen it like in theaters twice. I saw it like in my class, and then I watched it outside of class. Anyway, watching it again now is I was especially like after having made my own documentary, because I watched it like when we were about to go into post-production just to watch it. And like watching it now, I was just kind of watching it with a different eye, and it was just it's just crazy to think about everything that went into making it, but also just like how she had to approach her subjects to give them that safety, you know, to just be themselves. And I feel like a lot of it is their brazenness, like they're able to be themselves pretty easily, but to be able to present on camera in that way and share like some of the more vulnerable stuff was like really impressive to me. Yeah, and also just a little note too is I love the opening because she has everybody read out the release, right? That says there is a film crew here, you know, and she shows every single band reading the release to the audience, and each band like reads it very differently and with their own personality, and it's such a good opener. I just love it so much because each one is so unique, and also just seeing like Darby from Germs like blasted and like reading this thing, like it's just so intense, you know, and you're like, okay, like strap in. We're about to go for a ride.
And on top of that, there's one thing I noticed with this film too is it's the first time you can see kids being like shitheads to the camera. Like they're all like, nah, fuck you, get it, like, and I don't think I've seen that with a young youthful group before this movie that I can recall. Like it's like, oh,
that's a really good point.
Like every time one of them gets a camera on, they're like, they do something stupid or they're pissed or something like that. And I can't recall the disrespect for a camera from a youthful, the youth back then, because the hippies have been like, hey man, you know, like trying to get their message. These people are like, get that off me, or I'm too cool for this.
But, punk as fuck.
And hey, the National Film Registry thought that too, because they deemed it culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant and put it in the vaults for all of time back in 2016, I believe. So
well deserved.
Very well deserved.
A historical timepiece, and everybody should watch it.
Definitely. All right, we'll move on to the final segment here.
Okay, cool.
So this is what else? This is where we talk about a little bit about other things we may have taken in recently, like books, media, whatever, or something we just put out into the world. Chelsea, what else?
What else? Oh boy. Well, 2020 has been a spell, y'all. So like I mean currently it's November 23rd, and I feel like I've already dug into shitty Christmas movies in the last few days, and it's been just like a warm dumb hug, you know. But what I will say is in terms of consuming things that I would recommend. Bleeding Audio was recently a part of Sound Unseen, which is a music and film festival, and I was lucky enough to get a badge and watch a few movies, and I watched a movie that I am obsessed with, which is called The Sound of Metal.
Okay,
yeah. And I think it's about to come out, or it's already out. It's gonna be on some platform. I think it was originally set for like a theatrical release, and holy shit, this movie, I love it. And I'm like a little annoyed because I've like written something kind of similar. This one has a different theme though, so I feel like I can get away with it. But it's basically like this drummer of this like metal band, he loses his hearing. And it's about his journey to like accept that. And I mean, the idea of a musician losing their ability to hear is heartbreaking.
Yeah.
And it just honestly, what's his name? His name's Ravi. I think his name's Ravi something.
Rish Ahmed?
Rish Ahmed?
Or the actor in Sound of Metal?
Ooh, yeah, what's his
I
name?
think from
You're
the night of.
probably right. Yeah, is it Rish Ahmed?
Rish Ahmed, yeah.
Riz Ahmed? Okay. Yes, Riz Ahmed. Sorry.
Mhm.
You're right. He was incredible in this movie.
Yeah, they're saying
Like,
Oscar, big
oh
time.
my God, 100% Oscar. He's so amazing. And he's like a Brit, and he does this amazing American accent. And so I am obsessed with Chloe Zhao, who's another really amazing female director. She did a movie called The Rider a couple years ago, and like The Rider is about, like a guy who rides horses who can't anymore because of an injury resulting from the thing that he loves, right? Because that's like really scary, is like when the thing you love like hurts you and you can no longer experience that anymore. And to me, this like had that same kind of vulnerability and like fear, but in a much more aggressive, intense way, I think, because the subject is also battling addiction. And so it's like, I don't know, okay, I'm not going to give anything away, but just Sound of Metal, it's so good.
Excellent.
And yeah, I hope Riz Ahmed, I'm so bad at names. He was also in Nightcrawler and
Nightcrawler. I love Nightcrawler.
Nightcrawler's so good. I don't know. I just love this actor. Every time I see him, I'm like, oh, I really like that guy. And then I saw this movie and obsessed.
There you go. Excellent. Myself, I have a big one. I got to see as a recording last night. I saw Tenet.
Oh, how was it?
It's fun. It's a good movie. But I had a friend rented out the IMAX theater, the State Museum one, and where I live, it's a 70 millimeter too, so the real deal. And he only allowed 9 people to come, so we could all have our own row and be as far. And the theater only had a concession stand worker and the projectionist, so it was like this, and it was at night. There was nobody there. Like, it was safe as hell to watch. So I was like, with 8 other people watching Tenet.
Oh my God, that is a good friend.
I know, and I was like, and it was funny. Like, and the movie just started. They didn't even play the IMAX intro, nothing like that. And they're like, please leave your trash in your seat so we know which ones to wipe down, please. So there's that. And we got free popcorn and drink. And
amazing.
Yeah. So, and it was weird to be in a theater again. And then it's like, once the Warner Brothers logo came up, I'm like, oh my God, I'm not supposed to get choked up at Tenet, but I'm in a theater again watching a movie. And it was fun. I think if you like Inception, this is right there with it. And like, it's spectacle wise, I wish people could see it in the theater. It sucks they didn't hold on to this. I got lucky.
Yeah.
And it wasn't really hard. There's small details in the film that I think watching it again will come to light better, but overall narrative pretty easy to follow. And I had no sound issues. I know people are saying, like, I couldn't hear stuff. I'm like, I had none. I really had none. And the action in it is very innovative, like nothing you've seen so far. It's really playful, and
cool.
I enjoyed the hell out of it. I didn't expect I was going to see that in a theater this year. I thought I'd see it on 4K Ultra HD next month, but no. I will still see it on 4K Ultra HD next month, but I was like, wow, 0 hour swish or whatever, and got it in there. So that's...
Oh my gosh. I'm so jealous. I'm like, what was it like being in a movie theater?
It was weird. It had a mask on. It was I don't know. It worked. It was safe. I talked to my wife before. I'm like, do we think this is safe? And she's like, yeah, I think this is safe. So I was lucky.
I'm so glad you got to see that. That's so cool. Yeah, I'm excited to see Tenet. I will say though, I mean, like Christopher Nolan is just going to get a shudder up his spine when I say this, but like, I mean, I saw Interstellar on like an airplane screen. I know, blasphemy. I came home, immediately bought it, and like watched it on our screen here. I missed it in theaters because I'm a huge Nolan fan, as we've discussed.
Yeah.
I don't know why I didn't see Interstellar in theaters, but I love Nolan. His film pretension kind of bothers me, but I do think that seeing things in a theater, there's just something a little magical about it.
Right.
I mean, a lot of magical about it, but like, I am excited to see Tenet. That guy knows how to make an action film
Oh,
and
yeah.
make it weird, and I love
Yeah,
it.
I love. Yeah, and the layering and rewatchability is quite there with it. I am expecting to hear so much hate about it, and I'm confused from the people that sit on their phones and try to watch a movie next month. But hey, I enjoyed it, and I'd rather be on the side that enjoyed it than the hater side any day
I
of the
think
week.
like I feel like too it's just become this joke too where like Nolan's like it will only exist in theaters
Yes.
because that is who I am as Christopher Nolan.
But
and
he never
meh.
said that. He always said
It's
he
true.
preferred
He never outwardly said it,
There's
but he
been-
just they kept like pushing the release. They're like, don't worry, it'll be in theaters. And it's just like give us the movie. Like we want to watch
Yeah.
it. We'll pay you for it if you're worried about money. And like I
Mhm.
get the experience is more important, but like it was one of those things where I'm just like, just give us the movie. We're gonna watch it. We're gonna enjoy it. It's gonna be fine.
I'm gonna give him a little bit of benefit of the doubt because we never saw him say it. He wants his movie in theaters, but
Of course,
with
we
them-
all do.
with them putting Wonder Woman 84 out now on digital, I'm like, who was pushing that more? Who was pushing to get that out? Maybe Warner Brothers was a little heavier handed than Nolan. Now that we have this evidence, but who knows?
Who knows?
Tenet's cool. Before we wrap this episode,
Okay.
I want to mention that we are recording on Doctor Who Day, and
I
you
know.
used to have a Doctor Who podcast, brilliantly titled Doctor Hoodlums.
Yeah.
So, as a fellow Whovian, wearing a Doctor Who shirt today, it's probably too dark to see on my screen. I need to know are you still keeping up with the show?
Yes.
Okay.
Not quite as religiously as I had previously, but yes.
Okay.
Like we usually just wait until the season's out and then just like watch the whole thing.
Gotcha. Who's your favorite Doctor, and who's your favorite companion?
Ooh. So like for a long time it was Tennant,
Okay.
but like I love Jodie Whittaker, right? That's her name.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think she's like the best Doctor.
She's
I
great.
love her so much. And honestly, it took me a while, but like Peter Capaldi,
Mhm.
I feel like his first season was just shit. And it
Yeah.
wasn't his fault. It wasn't his fault.
Yeah.
And then he grew into this really great Doctor. Like
yeah.
he was an old punk rocker. Like that
Right.
was
That
his
was the
whole
best
thing.
angle to take. Yeah. Yeah.
Totally. And I feel like the first season they were like, oh, we're just gonna make him like an old guy, and then they were like, no, we need to like do hardened like
Right.
punk rocker,
Yeah.
know, and that really sealed the deal for me. But I have to say, like for a long time it was Tennant, and then Capaldi became a really close second,
Mm-hmm.
and now I think Jodie Whittaker is just.
I don't know.
love
My thing
her.
with I love Jodie, but I'm like, do I love Jodie or do I love Jodie's doctor? I don't. Because in person interviews, I'm like, man, she is just amazing, and then she brings that energy to the role. So I'm like, is it just a Jodie thing? Is it her doctor?
It's just who she is.
who she is. Like, I'd love to meet her. She's like so great, and like she has taught like it's a family show. Like my kids watch it, and my son like now. He was kind of like, oh, girl, and I was like, and now he thinks like she's amazing. He wants girls for everything. He's like, Daddy, we should have a girl president. Really should. I'm like,
Yes.
Thank you, Jodie Whittaker. Thank you. So,
that is great. That's really cool to hear. So I'm happy to hear it. Very cool. Good dadding there.
Good dadding, I guess.
Good job.
Thanks to the world of Who for opening doors for my.
Who's your favorite Doctor?
I'm old school Tom Baker. He's my favorite. But the new ones, like my second favorite's David Tennant of the new ones. So I mean, he got me into the show more than I was as a kid. But Tom Baker's got a lot of classic. His first couple of seasons have like this like kind of Hammer horror-esque aspect to them that it really draws me in a lot. And I like Robert Holmes is one of the better writers on the show, and they got a strong staff during that time. And he has one of my favorite companions in his later years is Romana, who is like a fashion god. Like she just everything she wears is just I would like a figure of that. I would like just her outfits are amazing.
Oh, that's so cool. Yeah, I the kind of dynamic that we had on our podcast is that like I was kind of new Who, and then my podcast co-host Zen was like old Who.
Okay.
I mean, and present day Who, and so he knew all the old Who references and stuff, and I kind of was like new era, and so like we were eventually gonna like start going into the older seasons too,
Yeah.
and it just never quite made it. Like
Happens.
we also had the ambition of, let's release 2 podcasts a week, and it just burned us out. We should have done like 1 a week or 1 every other week, and it burned us out really quick. Especially because we had a segment called Dr. Hooch, where I had to design like cocktail every episode for the episode, and it was really fun, but like at a certain point I was like, there's only so many things I can do.
Right.
Like,
I ran out.
like I can have fun, but like it became like an expensive venture too, just being like, ooh, I have this idea for a cocktail, and then I was like, I have to go buy like these 3 different liquors, and then like I had like certain like creme de cassis just like sitting in my house that I had to like pour out. But it was fun. But in terms of like my favorite companion, it would have to probably be Donna.
Donna. Oh yeah, Donna's good.
She was great. She was really great. She was just lots of fun, and she made the most. She had the most growth, I feel like.
Oh yeah, for sure. And that, not the first one, her second appearance, which was her reintroduction when they had the window scenes, one of my favorite comedic moments ever. That's so good.
I love her.
Gotcha. Okay, well, that'll do it for this episode. Chelsea, you gave me so much. I owe you the world. Let people know where they can find more work from you, find you on social media, whatever you'd like to plug right here.
Yeah. So you can follow me on Instagram. It's at Chelsea Christer. I'm on Twitter. I'm at Chelsmark on Twitter because Chelsea Christer is taken for some reason by somebody who got suspended. So if you're out there in the Twitter world, help me out. And I don't know. There's no other Chelsea Christers in the world that I know of. So maybe just somebody, I don't know, an evil ex-boyfriend or something. I honestly have no idea. So at Chelsmark on Twitter, and then Facebook, whatever on Facebook. Nobody uses Facebook anymore, right? Like we all
I have it because it's a free place to promote
stuff. Things. I know. That's like the only reason why I still have it too. Yeah, don't. As soon as Bleeding Audio is over, I'm deleting that fucking thing.
There you go.
Watch The Social Dilemma. And but yeah, sorry, I'm turning this into a tirade. And then
I love tirades. Go for it.
But for Bleeding Audio, you can go to our website, www.bleeding-audio.com. We are on all the socials, so just Bleeding Audio Film on Facebook, bleeding_audio on Twitter, and Bleeding Audio Film on Instagram. And you can look for the latest updates about the film, about, what festivals we're going to next, and hopefully when we get distribution. And yeah, that's it.
All right. I'm on Twitter and Instagram at Brandon4KUHD. My written works at whysobblue.com. The show will return tomorrow with a 4K Blues Day installment. And until then, always remember to keep the positivity in your online film chatter.
Thank you for listening. The Brandon Peters Show is a Creative Zombie Studios production. Produced by Brad Shoemaker and Brandon Peters. Written and edited by Brandon Peters. Announcer vocals by Jessica Alsman. Theme song by Metavari. Web design and show art by Brad Shoemaker with Brandon Peters. All music and clips featured in the episode are property of their respective studios, and no infringement is intended. Additional information on this and other episodes at thebrandonpetershow.com. For any inquiries, press opportunities, or sponsorship, contact mail at thebrandonpetershow.com. The show is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere podcasts are found.